Hello YouTubers, this is IMAXNation1980 here with the second part of my belated Blu-ray update. So here we've got The Road Warrior. This is the sequel to Mad Max. Unfortunately, it didn't get a nice steel book like Mad Max did. Also, interestingly enough, the packaging refers to it as The Road Warrior. The original Australian title for Mad Max for this film was Mad Max 2. The Road Warrior was the American title of the film. This was because when Mad Max was released theatrically in North America in 1980, a year after its Australian release, it didn't do too well. It kind of just came and went. So when Warner Brothers got the distribution rights to the second one, because the first one I think was distributed by a smaller house named American International, Warner Brothers decided to drop the Mad Max connections and just market it as if it were a new film, and they titled it The Road Warrior. And this gave Vestron Video a chance to capitalize on that when they released the original Mad Max on home video shortly after The Road Warrior hit theaters. And they put on the box something along the lines of the prequel to The Road Warrior, or the thrilling prequel to The Road Warrior. But the Blu-ray contains the original Australian title card, despite the packaging saying The Road Warrior. Out of all the Mad Max movies I've seen so far, because I haven't seen Thunderdome yet, the third film, this one is my favorite, with Fury Road a close second. It's definitely one of those rare sequels that equals or is better than its predecessor, and it's the perfect blend of action, suspense, character development, and a lot of cool world building. It's one of my favorite sci-fi films and just one of my favorite films. The series to me is very, very creative, and I'm glad that director George Miller got to make a fourth one, even though it took a while. I'm glad that it was made because the fourth film is one of the best action films released in the last few years. Back in November, I picked up Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Futurama now. These were originally released back in 2002 or 2003, I think, and then they reissued them in 2012 and updated the packaging so that it would line up with the way they were packaging the new seasons. I have Volume 5 on Blu-ray. I don't have the other volumes, so I'm playing a little catch-up, and thankfully one day Best Buy had Volume 1 and Volume 2 available as a double pack for like $14, so I picked them up right away, and Futurama is one of my favorite shows, and I always wanted to get the DVDs, but I didn't get them back when they first came out, and the prices of them went up because I think they went on moratorium or something, so it's a good thing I waited because $14 for Seasons 1 and 2 and some of Season 3, you just can't beat that. But eventually I'm going to get all the volumes, because I love Futurama. And one of these days I'm going to have to get all the Simpsons DVDs too. I don't have those, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping that Fox would release the early seasons of The Simpsons on Blu-ray because I would get those in a heartbeat, but it doesn't seem like they're going to be doing that. And before we move on, this is the inside of the Criterion box for Hard Day's Night. There's some artwork inside the slip as well. Thought I'd show that off. And of course, here's Volume 2 of Futurama. And what I love about these reissues is that the covers are supposed to sort of evoke those 50s sci-fi movie posters, those sort of "it came from outer space" kind of things. And I like that the inner cases have artwork on them too. And it follows that sort of retro 50s design scheme. And even all the discs have artwork too. Especially in a day and age where discs, especially DVDs, don't have artwork anymore, so that's always nice. And though it would have been nice to see the early seasons on Blu-ray, I don't mind these DVD releases. And again, I got both sets for $14.99 or something around that ballpark, so can't complain about that. Next up is another Criterion Collection title. This is Fantastic Mr. Fox, a stop-motion animated film directed by Wes Anderson, and it's one of my personal favorites. If you haven't seen the film before, it's definitely recommended. It's very different from most animated features, and, it's in stop motion. But it has a very good script, it's very creative, and it's very different from a lot of animated features that come out today, and Criterion gave it the perfect treatment here. I mean, the Criterion Collection already loves Wes Anderson to begin with, so, of course, Fantastic Mr. Fox became one of the rare animated films to get the Criterion Collection treatment, and look at all this artwork. This is actually the painting that Mrs. Fox makes in the movie. And of course we got a lot of artwork on the interior of the case as well, artwork on all the discs, just great stuff. And it really reflects the sort of minimalist nature of the film. And of course, like other Criterion Collection releases, it has a lot of bonus features. Now, I already had Fantastic Mr. Fox on Blu-ray, but that was the sort of paint-by-numbers regular Blu-ray edition that was released by Fox in early 2010. That was just sort of a sort of general release. While this set is definitely more for the fans and the film aficionados, like myself. And of course, it has a book as well, showing some concept art, some of the models they used for the film, and many other things. It has notes, production notes. See, this, I love when people make sets for animated movies that go the extra mile, and I just wish that Criterion would get the rights to more animated movies and give them really good sets, because there are a lot of animated movies just begging for Criterion editions. And here is Ernest and Celestine. Now, I must confess I haven't seen this film, even though I got the Blu-ray and this past Christmas. I've heard many, many good things about it, and it's also traditionally animated. You don't see too many of those nowadays. I believe it's French and Belgian, and it was a critical darling, and it was also up for Oscar. Of course, it wasn't going to win, because usually when it comes to animated features, smaller independent films like this, and look, disc artwork, even for a smaller film like this, they usually don't have a chance at winning. It was a critical darling, so I gotta watch it as soon as possible. I heard just really, really good things about it. If you've seen it, tell me what you think. And here is Toy Story of Terror, the first of the two Toy Story TV specials, the second of which being last Christmas's Toy Story That Time Forgot. Now, this is a pretty decent Blu-ray set because it contains quite a few bonus features, plus it has an audio commentary. You see, even with TV specials and short films collections, Pixar does go the extra mile with the bonus features. And if you haven't seen any of the TV specials, please watch them as soon as you can, because they're very, very good, especially Toy Story of Terror. And of course, there's the case without the stickers, and as you can see there, it contains the 3 Toy Story tunes. I'm actually glad that this set has all the tunes, because I didn't have Partysaurus Rex, which was the third of the short films, and that was available on the Blu-ray of Monsters, Inc. that was released in early 2013 in the months prior to Monsters University. And I already owned the 2009 Blu-ray of Monsters, Inc., and I wasn't going to double dip just for the short. So it was great that they put the short plus the other 2 on this Blu-ray for those who didn't own Cars 2 or the Pixar Short Films Collection Volume 2 Blu-ray. And look, disc artwork! Pixar always goes that extra mile. Disney doesn't for all their other releases. I mean, look, Pixar even did it for a TV special. That shows how much they care. Next up, we've got The Book of Life. Now, this film was made by Real Effects, that's an animation studio based in Texas, and they've been doing a lot of work since the 1990s, but now they've really jumped into the theatrical feature animation market, and this is their second feature, and just by looking at the box, you could tell that this is not like other CG films in terms of the visuals. It looks like concept art come to life, and seriously, you should see the movie just for the visuals alone, because this is a movie that shows what you can do with CGI, and how CG doesn't always have to be photoreal in order to make something that looks really, really good. But above all, the story in it is very strong, and I think most of the characters are really good too. I think it's got a couple problems. I think once it gets to the second half, it starts to rush things a bit. Like, it seems to jump all over the place, and, I mean, the story remains consistent. I think the pacing in the second half is perhaps a little too hectic, and there are these worlds that they show us in the film, and I wish that they had spent more time, like they had shots where you really got to breathe in the atmosphere of these worlds, because the pacing of the second half of the movie really rushes things. You don't really get a feel for it unless you pause it. But other than that, it is a very good movie. I'd say blind buy it even. It's really unlike many CG films you've seen. I've been tracking this movie ever since I heard of it years before it came out, and I was just so excited to see a computer animated movie that would look like concept artwork come to life, or one that just didn't follow the mainstream sort of route, like the characters are modeled after dolls, and I like that the story is very personal. It's like a pet project. The film is like the pet project of its director, Jorge Gutierrez. I mean, I want to see more animated movies like this, where not only are the visual styles really creative and different, but the films are also the voices of their own, I think, this creators. Is a definite must-watch. And here we have Walt Disney Animation Studios' latest film, Big Hero 6, based on the Marvel comic of the same name. And yes, I really, really like this film. No real shock there. I think Walt Disney Animation Studios has been on a roll as of late. Everything they've been doing since John Lasseter has taken over has shown a level of good quality. Even the films I don't think are as good as others, they still have, grand ideas in them and For the most part, they're really, really doing good. And Big Hero 6, I think, is really good. Because, again, the story is very good, the character work is great, and also it's a little different from the norm. It kind of, much like Wreck-It Ralph, it kind of shows people accustomed to 90s Disney movies that there is no comfort zone when it comes to Disney. Much like Walt's eclectic films, it goes out, it experiments, it does things that, Disney might not have done before. And here we've got a big comic book superhero movie based on a Marvel comic, no less, that has something of an anime-esque flavor, among other things. So it's cool to see Disney animation branching out and trying out these new locations and these new kinds of stories. I like to see Walt Disney Animation Studios doing that, but at the same time, I like that they're telling good stories. And really, that's just the best of both worlds, when the studio is trying new things and telling great stories at the same time. Because they tried experimenting once, but it didn't go over. With films like Dinosaur, Atlantis, they were being very experimental, but the studio was being run by executives who kept interfering with those movies, and they're causing them to, well, fall short of their ambitions. This film and Wreck-It Ralph don't fall short of their ambitions because there's no executives behind the scenes ruining things or retooling them. They get to be what they want to be. But the good thing is, they happen to be very well written. Wreck-It Ralph more so than Big Hero 6 because Big Hero 6's pacing is a little off the map in places, and maybe it could have gone a little more all out. But, for what it is, it's really, really good. Definitely check it out. Next up is an Irish animated film. It's called Song of the Sea. This film was directed by Tom Moore, and as you can see there, he's the director of The Secret of Kells. It's a traditionally animated film, as you can see, and it has a very stylized animation style. It's based in Celtic folk art and many other influences. It's really a unique film. It goes its own route, and it eschews a lot of things that American animated films nowadays often gravitate towards. It's very calm, it's very quiet, it's not really busy or on the move. There is a plot, but it doesn't really get kicking until halfway through the movie. The movie has ace storytelling, and it's very heartfelt. It'll take you by surprise. I had heard all these great things about it, and I must confess I've never seen The Secret of Kells. I know that's like an animation cinema sin of mine, and I have to redeem myself, but I really liked what I saw of Kells, so I gotta watch Kells one day, The Secret of Kells. But Song of the Sea is an animated masterpiece. It's one of the best modern animated films, and when you watch it, you'll see why. It really is a great work of storytelling, and it's a very good family film for all the ages. I mean, there's a lot of great American animated movies like Disney Animations and Pixar's films that are for adults and kids alike. This is no different. Its storytelling is a lot different from the usual that you get from American animation studios, and it's pretty deep at times, but in a good way. It's not the kind where it's kind of forced. It's actually really, really good, and it has a lot to say. And on top of that, it's just a very good fantasy adventure with a lot of drama mixed in, and there's moments of levity, too. Excellent. I'd say blind buy it. I think films like Song of the Sea really take advantage of animation as a medium, and they take traditional animation in very, very exciting directions. It doesn't have to be hyper-realistic or too close to real life. Sometimes it could be very, very abstract. And I like that the film goes a very abstract route in terms of the visuals, and ties it to what is a great fantasy story. And here we've got The Interview. Even if you haven't seen this film, you've probably heard of it because it led to the infamous Sony hack. This film is very, very similar to that of the other Franco, Seth Rogen vehicle, This Is the End, and that was a comedy that I really, really enjoyed. It was a film that I thought I wasn't going to really like, but The Interview is a lot like it. It's a very over-the-top comedy, and it knows it, and it just goes all out with its craziness. And it's worth a watch if you're up for that kind of thing. Here we've got one of my favorites from the year, Kingsman: The Secret Service, which is based on the comic book The Secret Service, which was written by Mark Millar, a very controversial comic book writer, if you don't know who he is. And this movie was directed by Matthew Vaughn, who also directed another Mark Millar adaptation, Kick-Ass. And yeah, I think that title applies to this film too, and disc artwork, as per usual with Fox. The Best Buy Only edition even comes with the first pages of the actual Secret Service comic that the film is based on. Now, I loved this film. I know that it was a little bit divisive. It did get good reviews, but it didn't get stellar reviews. The movie is pretty much a send-up of James Bond and other spy movies, and it makes fun of all the different tropes, but at the same time, it's its own thing, and it has really wild directing. The action is pulled off wonderfully by director Matthew Vaughn, and the actors are all awesome. The characters in the movie are all awesome. It's a movie that oozes Britishness, and on top of that, it's very funny, but at the same time, it does go down some dark routes. It's very balanced, I thought. I mean, the meta stuff, the parody stuff, it all worked really well. And it's definitely not a film for everybody. It's not everybody's cup of tea because the film has no filter. It literally has no filter. It knows that it's going to offend somebody, and it just goes through. It doesn't hesitate to not offend. It just goes all out. If you're not into that kind of thing, if there are things that offend you in certain movies, this may not be the best film for you. But if you're up for something that doesn't give two darns about who it's offending or whatnot, yeah, go ahead and watch it. One viewing of the Red Band trailer should give you a good idea of what's in store for you. But for me personally, I loved it. It's just all kinds of fun and very, very action-packed and very unique. So yeah, recommended. And here's a game I've owned for a little while but haven't really had the chance to play. This is Alien Isolation, the Nostromo edition. And I really, really want to play this, but life has been very busy and hectic for me lately, especially in the last couple of months. I think one night, probably during winter break, I'm going to play this on my big screen in the basement with the lights off for the full immersive experience. Then I'll review it. So yeah, that was the second half of my belated Blu-ray update. Thanks for watching. This is IMAX Nation 1980, signing off.